This is one of the most terrifying hospitals in the world. The experiments they perform on humans are so horrific you might just wet yourself from seeing them. So before we get to the video, remember that this is a super short movie recap. We won't reveal the whole story. I'll just show you a part of it, and there aren't many spoilers, so feel free to like the video and watch it till the end. The story is about a young man named Lockhart. He's a self-centered guy who only cares about his job and even sent his elderly mom to a retirement home. In an important meeting, Lockhart gets a letter from the company's CEO, Pembroke. In the letter, Pembroke writes that he's at a wellness spa in Switzerland and is never coming back. Pembroke also questions the company for its illegal and unethical practices. Because of this, the whole board of directors makes Lockhart responsible for bringing Pembroke back. They warn him that if he fails, he'll take the fall for the entire scandal. Lockhart has no choice but to accept, so he travels to Switzerland. After arriving, a driver named Enrico picks him up to take him to the wellness center. Enrico tells Lockhart that the locals dislike the people who live there. 2 centuries ago, a baron lived in that area. He was so obsessed with the purity of his bloodline that he decided to marry his own sister. When the church opposed it, he turned his back on God and went ahead with his plan. The villagers were angry about this, so on the wedding night, they attacked the castle. They burned the couple alive and leveled the castle to the ground. After that, the place was turned into a wellness center. Lockhart gets to the center, but since visiting hours are over, they tell him to come back in the afternoon. To kill time, he walks around the grounds. While doing so, he notices a window in the basement that looks really creepy. He finally meets with the director, Volmer, who tells him that the treatments only work if you're away from the pressures of the modern world. Volmer adds that the center is built on an underground aquifer with healing properties. While Lockhart is looking at pictures, he sees a man with his entire body covered in bandages. Volmer tells him to come back in the evening when Pembroke will be done with his daily treatment. Before leaving, Lockhart drinks a glass of water and thanks Volmer. But on the way back, a deer collides with their car and Lockhart passes out. 3 days later, he wakes up at the same center and realizes his leg is broken. Volmer tells him he's already notified his company and asks him to try out the treatments while he's there. After Volmer leaves, Lockhart sees a parasitic creature in his glass of water. Lockhart gets out of his room and finds Pembroke in the bathhouse. He tells him he has to come back to New York. Pembroke says he isn't well, but after he gets in the water for a bit, it's like he comes to his senses and he agrees to return with him. Lockhart is excited and he waits for Pembroke. While he's waiting, he meets an amateur historian named Victoria Watkins. She shows him an old church where the Baron supposedly executed a priest. Lockhart tells her about the Baron's obsession with bloodline purity, and Victoria promises to look into it. After that, Lockhart meets Hannah, the youngest patient at the center. She tells him she's a special case because she's the only one who can take the blue vitamin drops that Volmer and the staff use. When Pembroke doesn't show up, Lockhart confronts Volmer. Volmer tells him that Pembroke's condition suddenly worsened and he had to be moved to the next stage of treatment. Lockhart accuses Volmer of lying and intentionally making patients sick to keep milking them for money. Just then, Lockhart's nose starts bleeding and he collapses. Volmer takes him to his clinic for some tests. Lockhart sees a picture of Hannah at Volmer's desk, and Volmer says she's special to him because she went through serious trauma when she was young. After reading Lockhart's medical report, Volmer suggests he undergo treatment. Lockhart agrees and secretly snags Pembroke's medical file. Lockhart enters a tank filled with water. During the treatment, an eel detaches his breathing tubes and he almost drowns. But just in time, the manager pulls him out of the water. Lockhart mentions the eels, but they've disappeared. He returns to his room and looks at Pembroke's file. Suddenly, he sees a staff member taking a patient to the old church. The next morning, Lockhart asks Victoria about the church, but she doesn't know what it's used for now. However, she tells him he was right about the Baron. The villagers didn't attack the castle because of the marriage. It was because he was performing terrible experiments on his peasants. People were finding dried up, disfigured bodies in their fields. Fearing they might be next, the villagers killed the couple. Just then, a nurse comes and takes Victoria away for her treatment. Lockhart wanders the grounds and sees Hannah riding her bike. He asks her to show him around town in exchange for a ballerina toy. Hannah agrees, and they go to a local tavern. There, Lockhart sees Enrico, the driver. Lockhart asks Hannah about herself, and she tells her her mom died in a fire and her dad will come for her when she's cured. She also lets him borrow some of her vitamins. Lockhart leaves her at the bar and goes to see Peter, the only doctor in town. Peter's a veterinarian, but after looking at Pembroke's file, he says his teeth are falling out due to chronic dehydration. This puzzles Lockhart because the spa makes patients drink plenty of water. He connects this to the Baron's experiments and the dried-up bodies. Peter tells him the Baron's sister's illness was infertility. While he's helping a sick cow that drank the spa's sewage water, he cuts it open and finds a dead calf and several eels spill out. Lockhart calls his boss in New York and finds out that Vollmer never told them about the accident. Enraged, Lockhart confronts Hannah and asks her why nobody is allowed to leave. He gets into a fight with another patron, and Vollmer arrives just in time to break them up. That night, Lockhart sees the staff taking patients to the church again. His own teeth start to fall out. He goes to the front desk to get some medicine and secretly finds Pembroke's room location. On his way, he meets Victoria and tells her the Baron's experiments are happening again. She tells him that the Baroness was pregnant on her wedding night, and they cut the baby out and threw it into the aquifer, but it survived. Lockhart finds Pembroke's room and is shocked to see him and other patients in water tanks full of eels. Lockhart tries to save Pembroke, but Vollmer catches him. As punishment, Vollmer straps him down and drills a hole in his front tooth. Lockhart escapes and goes to the local police station to report everything. Vollmer arrives and tells the police that Lockhart is hallucinating. He then brings Pembroke in, who looks fine.
Confused, Lockhart thinks he imagined it all and goes back to the spa. Lockhart undergoes several treatments that make him start to think like Pembroke. He begins to believe he's sick and needs a cure. But one day, while writing a note to his employers, he has a moment of clarity. He breaks a glass and uses a shard to cut his cast off, only to find out his leg was never broken. He breaks into the church and finds Vollmer's lab, where he sees bodies being fed to eels. One of the bodies is Victoria Watkins. Just then, Hannah enters the pool and eels swim around her without harming her. She gets scared and runs away. She goes to Vollmer, who is having dinner with his patients. Lockhart follows her and shouts that Vollmer is a liar and is poisoning them. The patients don't believe him and attack him. Lockhart passes out and wakes up in a chamber. Vollmer comes to him and reveals everything. He says eels' lifespans are short, but in the aquifer, they live for 300 years. He explains that the water is toxic to humans, but the Baron found out that a certain filtration process could make it drinkable. The filters were humans, and the process was painful. Vollmer puts a tube down Lockhart's throat, and eels enter his stomach to filter his digestive system, which apparently makes one immortal. Vollmer gives Hannah a wedding dress and says he wants to marry her to continue their bloodline. Lockhart looks at Victoria's notes and finds a portrait of the Baron with a little girl. It's Vollmer and Hannah. It turns out Vollmer is the Baron, and he survived the fire 200 years ago. He's been living under different identities, killing people to stay immortal. Vollmer is about to hurt Hannah when Lockhart arrives just in time. Vollmer reveals his scarred face and attacks Lockhart. Lockhart sets the room on fire. Vollmer drags him to the eel pool, but Hannah, realizing her father is a monster, hits him with a shovel and pushes him into the pool, where the eels eat him. Lockhart and Hannah escape on her bike and ride away. On the road, they run into Lockhart's bosses. They ask about Pembroke, and Lockhart tells them he's gone. They tell him to get in the car, but he refuses, and the movie ends with Lockhart riding off into the night with a sinister grin.